Thank you, Cadet Greer, for that amazing essay. I would now like to welcome Sergeant Justin Spencer and Senior Zuhair Syed to present their experience at LHS's Normandy Academy program. This program sends one LHS candidate to the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, Louisiana, to study about D-Day, and then to France to actually study Normandy at the site of the D-Day landings.
The first veteran who spoke to us at the World War II Museum was Mr. Bob Wolf. He discussed his experiences during World War II and what it was like being part of the 86th Infantry Division. Mr. Wolf fought in the Battle of Rohr Pocket at the tail end of the war. We also met French Air Force veteran Monsieur Rotin. He was the owner of one of our tour sites. Lastly, we met Colette Marin Catherine, a French resistance fighter. She was 13 when Germany conquered France in 1940. She and her family fought with the French resistance against the Nazi occupying regime from the very beginning. Her family hid guns and ammunition in a false ceiling of their home to aid disarmed Allied soldiers. As a teenager, Colette would secretly make flower wreaths to decorate the graves of fallen French resistance members and Allied bomber crews. It was illegal to do so, and the Gestapo always questioned her family when the wreaths appeared on the graves. Colette told us that she will always be proud of the most beautiful wreath she's ever made. She made this wreath to lay on the grave of the town mayor, who was executed after he was caught harboring a downed American pilot. On D-Day, Colette remembered the panic of the Germans at the news of the Allied invasion. She recalled walking down the street when German soldiers approached her in a motorcycle. One German severely wounded asked her, a French resistance fighter, directions to a hospital. Colette said it was at that moment she knew the Germans were going to lose the war. Colette did much for the cause of freedom. Even at such a young age, her courage and devotion is incredibly inspiring.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Normandy project is started by an anonymous donor from Lowell who chose to honor a fallen soldier from Lowell during the Battle of the Bulge. It's one of the most proud things that I do as a teacher at Lowell High School, is to be part of the selection committee. And I think what Zuhair has obviously illustrated, and other students will see who get this experience, is that it's more than just an opportunity to see a beautiful country, to see landmarks, but really what it is a responsibility to become a keeper of a legacy of soldiers who soon will not be with us to tell their stories. And I think it's a responsibility to the student chosen and to all of us that we continue that legacy, and that we recognize that the significance of our history is not the dates or the landmarks, but it's from the soldiers' sacrifice that made those dates significant.
One of the most memorable experiences on our trip was our visit to Utah Beach. The beach was very different compared to Omaha and all the other beaches. The pristine color and softness of the sand was what stood out most. The softness of the sand made me think of how difficult it must have been for an average soldier carrying 50 to 70 pounds of gear to maneuver quickly across the beach under fire.
I think with regards to this, what Zuhair points out is the opportunity that the students receive to stand upon the beaches where the invasion took place, and maybe just for a moment reflect on not just the battlefield as a whole, but the individual actions and sacrifices that soldiers took for each other in that moment of battle. And I think I can speak for most of the veterans here today, if not all, that we chose to put on a uniform for a love of a country and a flag that represents that country. But the actions that we took while wearing that uniform were significantly for the fellow soldier that we stood next to our left and to our right.
We visited many cemeteries to pay our respects. On day 8, we visited the British War Cemetery in Bayeux, and on day 9, the Lacombe German Cemetery on the outskirts of Bayeux. On day 11, we visited the Normandy American Cemetery in Collioure-sur-Mer. Standing in the cemetery was breathtaking. So much pain felt in an area of extraordinary serenity and beauty. After spending close to 2 weeks surrounded by the incredibly patriotic and courageous stories of hundreds of men and women, learning the hardships they had to endure every day, the injuries they had to fight through, the sacrifice they made to secure freedom for their country and children, our emotions got the best of us and many tears were shed. I kept saying to myself it wasn't fair that these men had to die, fighting a war because of some man's sick ideology. But they did anyway because they knew it was the right thing to do. Standing in front of all those graves is a moment I will never forget, because for a moment those were not graves. There were hundreds of young men, many the same age as my friends and I, staring back at me. Ever since then, not a day goes by without me thinking and thanking those men and women for dedicating their lives to help this world secure freedom for all.
Finally, in closing, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you for giving me and Zuhair the time to explain what the Normandy Project is about. Again, this is all paid for by an anonymous donor from Lowell who chose to honor the soldiers himself in some small way. I encourage all teachers and all students to look into it. It's offered to juniors every year. Towards the end of the year, you can seek out myself, talk to Zuhair, Mr. DeLosa, and again, thank you to the ROTC for allowing us time to speak to it, and thank you for being here.